Hello everyone. It's been a bit of a turbulent time in the hobby recently. Two institutions of the hobby are no more. First we heard about the closure of Hattons, and then the cancellation of future Warley shows at the NEC. If you want to have a look at the last Warley show at the NEC, I did shoot some footage while I was there, which you can see on my channel. Hattons was a long-standing model retailer, trading since 1946. They were one of the first model shops to go online, and one of the few that properly handled worldwide shipping outside the EU. I've been ordering from Hattons for a long time, a bit over 2 decades now. I think I've spent an order of magnitude more with them than with any other retailer. Initially because of the amazing deals they had, and later because they were one of the few places who could reliably ship to me while I was living in Australia. I've not been as loyal a customer recently as I once was. They've had difficulties getting new models from both Bachmann and Hornby. So many things I've literally not been able to buy from them. I've been forced to go elsewhere. When I heard they were closing, I went to the website and saw the vast majority of my long-standing wish list was already sold out. I did order a few things though, and here it is. My last ever Hattons order. Not quite the same shock I got walking up North End in Croydon on autopilot heading to Beatty's, rounding the corner and finding myself a few feet from the entrance of a branch of Ann Summers that had replaced it. But still, it's a bit emotional really. There's nothing dramatically exciting in the box, to be honest. Faced with a rather slow website and things selling out while I was looking at them, I picked essentials for the next stage of the layout build that were already wishlisted. In particular, the 2 key slips for the upper station throat, some signals for the through station, and some catenary masts. Well, most of it was all for the next stage of the layout build anyway. Hattons made a statement regarding the closure on their website. Obviously, most of the published information relates to what customers need to do in the future. They did include a few words relating to why they are closing down though. They explicitly call out declining customer numbers and changing demographics, supply chain disruption, and international shipping and compliance costs. I don't think that's the full story. There's an elephant in the room here. Losing the ability to sell new models from the 2 biggest manufacturers for a lengthy period of time, one of which is still ongoing, is notable by its absence. You'd have thought something of that magnitude would rate a mention more explicit than supply chain disruption, which most people will understand as referring to manufacturing and shipping delays getting models from China, which is a problem in its own right at the moment. Richard Davies from Hattons was interviewed in a live stream on Jenny Kirk's channel, link in the description. That interview, like the statement, was mostly focused on what customers need to do going forward. But it was a 45-minute live interview rather than a 4 bullet point prepared statement. So it's easier to read between the lines, and there are a lot more lines to read between too. When discussing what other retailers should be doing to survive the current challenging retail climate, he said, and I quote, "People need to choose their lane." That sounds awfully like, you need to stay in your lane. And I would suspect Hattons have been told something along those lines by a major manufacturer in a conversation about why Hattons aren't able to place trade orders for new models. He also discussed the inability to split Hattons into separate businesses, how they were doing too much and it was all too closely tied together. The key separation would need to be between the retail and model commissioning sides of the business. Even if this hadn't been separated into a subsidiary from day one, I would strongly suspect you could sort this out internally, certainly to the satisfaction of accountants and the taxman. It's not beyond the wit of man to create a new subsidiary company, invest in it so it has some seed funding, then have it buy the tooling from your retail organisation. But it's not the accountant or the taxman that needs satisfying the 2 parts are sufficiently separated now, is it? Remember, Hattons sold the Class 66 tooling to Accurascale, and not long afterwards, Hornby products returned to the Hattons shop. Hornby's red line appears to have been owning directly competing tooling. Not that anyone willing to purchase a top-spec Class 66 would have been interested in Hornby's ex-Lima should-be railroad but inexplicitly isn't model anyway, particularly with an intermediate Bachmann model around, but nevertheless, that's what Hornby's red line appears to have been. The question is, what would they have needed to do to solve the issue with Bachmann, the current market leader for British model railways? It appears a solution could not be found. My guess is that Bachmann is judging Hattons by past behaviour, and their red line may well have been supplying models they had commissioned to trade. Bachmann could be looking at Hattons having done that in the past and saying, you have a history of acting as a competing manufacturer and being unwilling to supply them on trade terms as a result. There may not be anything Hattons can do now to change that. No amount of creating new shell companies now changes statements of the form, you have a history of. That's about the only way I can see shut down the shop as the preferred solution when you've stated you are not insolvent and you're looking to wind up the company with no outstanding debts. At the very least, it could have been sold as a going concern to other owners if you wanted to leave the business. And it sounds from the interview like he really didn't want to leave the business. I guess we eventually did get ourselves an answer to the question of whether Hattons needed Bachmann more or Bachmann needed Hattons more. A sad answer for Hattons, but an answer nevertheless. For anyone in need of a new retailer to buy their models from, there are still plenty out there. There doesn't appear to have been a price advantage in being a high-volume box shifter for some time, so do remember to support your local model shop. And for anyone looking forward to future production runs of Hattons tooling, do check the Hattons website closely. Some of the planned production runs are in fact still going ahead, while others have been cancelled. If you were looking forward to runs of some of the models that have now been cancelled, or other tooling Hattons own, I'm sure this tooling will reappear under new ownership in the future. It's not lost forever, it's a valuable asset and someone will buy it. See you next time at Donget's Model Railway.